Welcome, it's my pleasure to welcome you to another edition of All My Children, the Scrapbook Stories. As always, I am your presenter, Edwin Sanchez, and for the next few minutes I will be bringing you stories from this book, All My Children, the Complete Family Scrapbook, written by one of my favorite soap opera writers, Gary Warner. I hope you will enjoy it as much as I will, because it's always been my great pleasure to bring you something that comes from a book, even though I've never done it. So let me give you a little background of what's been going on throughout this episode. So last time we finished 1970, when All My Children began. Now today I will be reading you the story of 1971, what's been going on in 1971. And, you know, it's really fascinating. After many retakes we've been doing around, I'm going to be able to share it with you all. But before I begin sharing it with you, here are a few words.
All My Children, the Scrapbook Stories, brought to you by Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper is just what the doctor ordered.
We're a part of the future. We're the heart and the soul. You're a part of me. That's the heart of me. Without you, I'm just a lonely melody. But together we are harmony. Dr. Pepper, you're a part of me.
Look what some car makers have been offering. Air-conditioned glove compartment? What kind of feature is that? How about a feature like, won't leave me stranded on the side of the road? As in a reputation for dependability? Hey, you'll find it in one place. Toyota Tercel. The right amount of car for the right amount of money. And look, best model in its price class and initial quality. I get that from J.D. Power and Associates. They get it from Tercel owners. And that's a feature you won't find on any window sticker.
Well, this is gonna be one heck of a night. So shall we begin this night or day? Let's do it. Without further ado, the continuing story of the All My Children scrapbook. There we go. Anne Tyler was quite taken with Nick Davis. Much to her mother Phoebe's chagrin, Phoebe believed Nick was the kind of man who used women like toys, manipulating their affections. Phoebe had conveniently forgotten her own flirtations with Nick. That could be a bummer. In her mind, he wasn't fit for any woman, least of all her own daughter. But Anne had always had a mind of her own, and the more Phoebe railed against Nick, the more Anne defended him. Even Charles insisted Phoebe stay out of Anne's affairs, but to no avail. Anne tried to convince her mother that Nick had changed, that he wasn't the same man who had walked out on Amy all those years ago. Anne saw Nick as a man who was truly sorry for his past mistakes. She witnessed his struggle to become something more than a stranger to his son. Her admiration and respect for him grew into a strong attraction. Nick enjoyed Anne's attention. Whether he thought he deserved it was another story. She was a true lady of considerable background. He was a drifter without roots. Nick agreed with Phoebe that Anne was too good for him. He was surprised when Anne didn't follow her mother's advice and be rid of him, but he was happy that she didn't. Anne had the rare ability to bring out the best in Nick. He was honest about himself with her in a way he had never been before. They were an improbable couple, the daughter of society and the two-bit dance teacher. Despite their different backgrounds and the opposition of Anne's mother, Nick and Anne fell deeply in love. Life wasn't as blissful for Tara. With Phil's failure to remember her, Tara had turned to Chuck even more. He confessed his love for her, and she acknowledged she loved him too, but not the way she loved Philip. And to prove it, here is a footage of Phil and Tara.
Well, Phil, if you went to college, maybe you could get a student deferment.
If I'm not drafted before then. But even if that did work, Sarah, I'd have to live at home because the folks can't afford to send me out, and I just don't know if I can do that.
Sweet, isn't it? Well, it's gonna get more sweeter. And sour. She longed for the day Philip would come to her and they could resume their plans for the future. That day never came, so Tara accepted Chuck's proposal of marriage. But Phil's memory did come back. However, he chose to keep silent in the face of his friend's plans for the future. Only one word from Phil and Tara would be his. The feelings were still strong in both of them. When Phil confided in Nick about his feelings for Tara, Nick encouraged him to tell her and stop his misery. Phil refused. Chuck was his best friend, and Phil knew it would destroy Chuck to lose Tara. As for Tara, Phil believed he had brought enough pain and uncertainty into her world. He would not bring her more. Really? Because that's partially of what he said. Well, I think so. Well, if you see this little sentence that Phil said while he was in his close deathbed, you will learn. Yeah, I knew it. So Phil remained silent and wished them both the best. Phil didn't know that Tara questioned her decision and was waiting for him to step in. If he had, she would have called the whole thing off, but Phil gave her no hints. So Tara forged ahead with wedding plans. Bibi was delirious. While her children continued to make disastrous choices in love, her grandson didn't. Bibi hardly approved of Chuck's choice for a bride. Tara Martin was a lovely girl from a good and solid family. Phoebe busied herself with plans for a society wedding far more elaborate than anything the Martins could imagine. Meanwhile, Charles consoled Mona, who fretted over Erica's determination to marry Jeff Martin. Let's pause, because I want to continue, but not too much. So, here are a few words.
We're live on Prodigy at 8:03 Eastern. Now, lately, some people have had trouble getting onto other online services. Prodigy members, don't worry. You can count on us. See, we've got the capacity to handle millions of members and messages daily, so you can get online when you need to without worrying about being cut off from your investments, banking, or email. There's never been a more exciting time to join us. Call 1-800-979-LIVE now to get Prodigy software plus 1 month membership, all free.
When he asked what she wore, it was always red door. So sensuous, so alluring, so inviting. Red door, the irresistible fragrance from Elizabeth Arden. Open it.
So, shall we continue? Yes, there's going to be a lot of madness over here, so be careful. I know. Erica wasn't nearly as in love with Jeff as she was with the idea of getting out of her mother's house Erica saw Jeff as her escape from that mundane existence. Even if Jeff was only an intern, someday he would be a doctor. Being Jeff Martin's wife would mean something to people in Pine Valley. And it says here that that was Erica's consuming goal. If you don't believe me, I'll show you. Listen, it says here. It says here in the book. In here. And that was Erica's consuming goal. I know you can't see it because of the lighting, but it says here. Oh yeah, and I see a picture in here also. Look, in here. This is... Am I pointing right? No. This is Tara. And let me see if I'm pointing it right. This is Jeff, I think. Or is it Phil? I don't know. But they're both in a hospital, and I just wanted to share it with you. Let's continue now. Oh. Tara warned her brother against Erica, but Jeff was blinded by her beauty and her ability to make him feel important. Erica had convinced Jeff she needed him, that she leaned on him and depended on him to take care of her. Thoughts of Erica consumed Jeff. A pending date with her made his exhausting hours at the hospital bearable. Erica basked in his adoration. Though he wasn't sure whether it was his idea that they get married or Erica's, he was completely for it. The more time he could spend with her, the better. But he wanted to wait until he was financially secure before they wed. Considering how hard Tara was working to keep them apart, Erica decided she had to act fast. I don't know. She wanted to act fast. Most people want to act fast. As much as Jeff wanted to wait when he eloped with Erica, he probably thought that was his idea too. Why would you want to agree with a woman who would just want to use you, Jeff? I mean, seriously, they wouldn't be more stupid enough. Well, I mean Erica, but over the years she was more interested in men for the most of her part. You know, it seems so weird. What am I doing? We have to continue. The reason why I'm doing this is because I like reading you this book. So let's continue with the book. Alright? News of their marriage jolted both families. Still, Mona liked Jeff and felt Erica couldn't have picked a finer young man. That's what she might think. Erica would choose any man. Mona wished her daughter well, but Erica couldn't help hearing the apprehension in Mona's voice. While Jeff's family had a strong reservation about the hastiness of the marriage, Kate and Joel welcomed Erica into the family, albeit reluctantly. Tara bit her tongue to keep her from telling Jeff how angry she was that he'd fallen for Erica's phony charms. Not only Erica's charms are phony, but she looks more like a phony to me. I'm sorry if I am offending any Pine Valley character, I don't mean to. But, in my opinion, or in my mind, it's the truth. Jeff and Erica moved into a less than glamorous flat that was all Jeff could afford. Erica made it clear that if Jeff really loved her, he would find a more suitable place. But this time Jeff was firm. They were staying put for the time being, and Erica must accept it. How come? She never accepts anything. She was miserable. This time, the marriage to Jeff was far from the idyllic image she had concocted. Again, she felt trapped. She had fled her mother's provincial nest only to land in another. While Erica brooded in their tiny drab apartment, Jeff spent most of his time at the hospital. Hold on. I don't want to take too much of the time, but let's take a break.
It's the 21st Annual American Music Awards.
Oh, my goodness.
Performing live, Whitney Houston, Rod Stewart, Michael Bolton, and more. Join Reba McEntire, Tony Bennett, Salt and Pepper, the list goes on. The 21st Annual American Music Awards live Monday.
People say it's what's inside that counts. Well, people, I got a confession. You never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Don't let flakes be the first thing people see. Head and Shoulders helps prevent flakes. Doesn't just rinse them away like regular shampoos. It's like no other shampoo in the world.
You never get a second chance to make a first impression.
My husband, the big football coach, well, sure he acts tough, but when he got the flu, I knew he felt it just like the rest of us. Body aches, fever, coughing. So I made sure that he got new Tylenol Flu.
Only new Tylenol Flu has maximum strength medicines and extra strength Tylenol brand pain reliever to fight even your worst flu symptoms.
Tylenol Flu really got him back on his feet.
Nothing fights the flu harder than new Tylenol Flu.
You know, he may be the coach on the field, but at home, I'm the team doctor.
Alright, before I continue with this book, I want to clear out my apologies for the offensive mattering that is going in my part, and the mispronouncing of any words that I haven't heard of before. You know, it takes a lot of time to get confused and to try to read fast, and of course I also want to apologize for my fast pace of speaking, because I can't control what I am saying. Yeah, I own a typewriter. Well, I used to until I destroyed it. Anyway, that's not the point in here. The point is that we are here to bring you some more of this book. And that's the way it's going to be. I'm going to bring you more of this book right now. Jeff's work became even more demanding when he began his residency at Pine Valley Hospital. He wished he could make Erica understand how thrilling and challenging he found his work, but he couldn't ignore her stifled yawns whenever he spoke of it. He found a friendly, interested ear in Mary Kennicott, the new nurse at the hospital. Medicine fascinated Mary, and they spoke the same language. That's wonderful. Never knew that they both had a good language connection. That's gotta be interesting. Mary had impressed everyone at the hospital with her hard-working, down-to-earth attitude. Though she was a plain young woman, there was a sweetness about her that made her attractive. As one of the head nurses, Ruth Brent's job was to take Mary under her wing. As Ruth kept an eye on Mary, she couldn't help noticing how the young woman's face lit up whenever Jeff entered a room. Though Ruth knew Joe was doing his best to accept Erica as his daughter-in-law, Ruth had no doubt that Mary was a better match for Joe's son. I think she is a better match for Joe's son because Jeff deserves more than Erica. Let's see if that wish of mine came true. Ruth and Joe were becoming a familiar sight together in the hospital cafeteria as well as in and around Pine Valley. It was clear to onlookers that they were keeping company before they realized it themselves. Even though they found comfort in each other, there were problems, and yes, it says here in this book. Ruth knew how much her son Phil still loved Joe's daughter Tara. She hoped Tara would break up her engagement to Chuck and longed to tell her of Philip's true feelings. But Joe felt that he and Ruth should stay out of their children's lives. Besides, after the way Phil had hurt Tara, I say he didn't. Phil did not hurt Tara at all. But anyway, after the way Phil had hurt Tara, falsely, Joe wasn't too keen on Tara's picking up with him again. Joe's mother, Kate, encouraged Tara to follow her heart, but without some encouragement from Philip, Tara couldn't accept her grand's advice. When the day of her wedding to Chuck finally arrived, she was nervous but determined she would marry Chuck. Philip was miserable, and Nick hated seeing his son this way. Nick believed that marrying Chuck Tyler would be the biggest mistake Tara could make. The more he thought about what she was going to do, the angrier Nick became. He'd been drinking, and when the minister asked whether anyone had just called for this marriage not to take place, and you know the sentence, speak now or forever hold your peace, Nick spoke up. His reason, he declared, was that Tara loved Philip. A furious Chuck engaged Nick in a fight. But within moments, Chuck collapsed. Let's take a break. I'm sorry.
Everyone ready?
Hey, is that a Polaroid camera, Mr. Hinkle?
It sure is, Billy. It's my new Polaroid Captiva.
Looks cool. Can I have it?
No. Everyone smile and say Bunsen burner. Cheese! One more.
Where's the picture? I thought it was a Polaroid camera. Yeah.
One more.
Then where's the picture?
Presenting the Polaroid Captiva. It's sleek, it's stylish, its pocket-sized pictures stay in a special compartment till you take them out, so you're free to shoot and shoot.
Is this some kind of joke?
One more.
The Polaroid Captiva. The pictures stay in.
One more.
Till you take them out.
My cold medicine almost worked on my head cold.
It kinda helped this thing in my chest.
Maybe your cold medicine's not working because it treats all colds the same. Introducing one that doesn't. New Bayer Select Cold Medicines. Powerful ingredients so exacting to be more. Each goes after specific symptoms and for powerful relief. New aspirin-free Bayer Select targeted cold medicines. Exactly what's right for exactly what's wrong.
Maybe you never thought of an airbag being custom-made for a minivan. But that's how we build the Mazda MPV, because we just thought making safety customary might appeal to you.
Welcome back. So, I want to share with you a sentence here in this book. As Chuck hovered between life and death from his kidney problem, Tara and Phil kept a constant vigil at the hospital. Is it said here in this book? Well, let's find out as I read you the conclusion to the story of 1971. Ruth pulled Tara from Chuck's side so that Joe, Charles, and Jeff could minister to the stricken groom. Phoebe was terrified for her grandson and furious at Nick. The wedding she had planned and waited for ended when Chuck was rushed to the hospital with a kidney failure. That Anne continued to see Nick despite her mother's oft-stated objections incensed Phoebe, especially when there was an infinitely superior candidate available for Anne's affection in Kate Martin's younger son, Paul. With a promising career as a lawyer, he was the kind of man Phoebe had always hoped her daughter would find. She went so far as to let Kate know Anne was available, but Kate would not play matchmaker for her son and suggested to Phoebe that she use some restraint when it came to her daughter's life. Kate wondered to herself how Charles ever survived a woman like Phoebe. In truth, Charles rarely heard a word Phoebe said these days. He had learned to tune her out. Preferring the company he found at the hospital to his wife, Charles wasn't sure exactly when he stopped loving Phoebe, but he knew he'd fallen in love with Mona Kane. Phoebe was too busy trying to run Anne's life to notice Charles' increasing coolness. She turned out to be right about Paul Martin. Not only was he a perfect suitor for Anne, he was an eager one. Anne was still in love with Nick Davis, though, just as Paul's niece was still in love with Philip. Ironically, it was Tara and Phil's mutual concern for Chuck that brought them back together. As Chuck hovered between life and death, Tara and Phil kept a constant vigil at the hospital. I knew it was going to be said in one of these paragraphs. Wow. Pardonne-moi. In reassuring glances and lingering touches, the strength of their feelings resurfaced. Tara knew Phil still loved her, and she could no longer pretend she didn't feel the same. They were finally back together. Then Chuck began to rally. The doctors informed Tara they believed his love for her had pulled him through and that his recovery would be a slow one. Joe told Tara that Chuck would need her more than ever and any upset could result in serious consequences. Hearing this advice, Tara realized she and Phil couldn't let anyone know they had reconciled. They agreed for the sake of their friend's life that Tara would remain Chuck's fiancée until he fully recovered. While Chuck slowly convalesced, and I apologize for the mispronouncing of the word, Phil received his draft notice. Having failed to enter college with the rest of his friends, he'd lost his student deferment. Philip Brent was in the army now, and all signs indicated he was headed for Vietnam. While Phil cursed himself for not starting college, Erica was dropping out. She saw no purpose in studying and improving her grade point average. Wow, I think that I could say the same thing for Erica. But with a workaholic husband and a partner she hated and no direction, she had too much time on her hands. Erica was relentless. She wanted something more from her life. Then she found the perfect job at Ann Tyler's boutique. Part of her duties involved buying trips to New York. And Erica Kane Martin met her destiny at last. And that concludes the story of 1971. Next time we get together, it will be the story of 1972. Until then, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of All My Children, the Scrapbook Stories. I'm Edwin Sanchez, and I would like for you to know, life is short. We always have to live it, but we only have one chance. So enjoy it while you can. And also, sometimes we find ourselves in hard times, but never forget that there will be easy times coming our way. So there is always a new tomorrow. So long, everybody.
Tuesday. Things get hot fast when Dad finds Darlene and David together.
After everything that boy's done, you've been helping him out?
I'm just soft.
Roseanne. Then Aiden's having a tough time becoming a dad.
This is a medical problem. It's like tennis elbow, only lower.
Coach after Roseanne, Tuesday.
If you've ever been in love,
Oh, my God.
then this is the Valentine special for you.
Will you marry me?
Surprise proposals that change the lives of 6 couples. You'll laugh and you'll cry.
I'm here to sweep you off your feet for the rest of your life.
Hosted by Patrick Duffy and Suzanne Summers. Will You Marry Me 1 week from tonight.